What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to our updated critical damage mimic Exile build that I built. This build has absolutely leveled up. We're hitting new heights, being able to one-shot a +4 level Zesh doing 33 million damage on our mimic Salvo, which is absolutely insane. We're now clearing more reliably on T16 breaches, being able to screen wide clear a lot better with our Herald tech. It just feels overall a lot better. Plus, we have solved our mana issues with the build, and overall the build just feels a ton better to play. If you guys do enjoy the video or you like what I'm doing on the YouTube channel, if you consider hitting a like on the video plus subscribing to the channel, it absolutely means a lot. Plus, it currently is the best way to support me, and it really does help with the YouTube algorithm. I should also be live on YouTube and Twitch, and the link for that will be in the description as well as the comment section of the video. All right, let's get straight into it. So the first thing we're going to go over is the gear. Now, not much has changed. For our bow, we are still running a composite bow. We can look for all bases now. Dual strings really don't add too much to the build. Trying to find like one that's 250 or 300 physical damage with really good crit chance and crit damage. Obviously, depending on your budget, you can drop the physical DPS lower, but finding that critical hit chance and crit damage is massive because it applies to the base, which anything that applying to the base gives our overall a lot bigger numbers, which means we hit harder, we have a better crit chance, etc. For our quiver, we're now running a visceral quiver. This is the best quiver base we can get just because it adds crit chance on the implicit. So we're trying to get cold damage to attacks because we have a lot of increased bonuses, especially from the tree. So this added cold damage to attacks is actually bigger than what it says. So trying to find increased projectile speed or increased damages with both skills on the quiver with crit chance and crit damage. That's absolutely massive too, and you'll see a big DPS boost if you can get all this on a quiver. And then if you can get like gain mana per enemy killed on your quiver and or one piece of your jewelry, you should see the mana issues completely solved while mapping. Now for our jewelry, we are running an amber amulet. Now this doesn't really matter too much of the base here. If we can get like a lunar, it would be better, but this is just what I found that had what we needed. We're looking for now +2 level to all projectile skills. This is really going to give the build overall more DPS. Plus it gives a lot more levels into our bone storm, which is huge, and I'll get into that in the gem section on why. Then we have lightning res on here, just still trying to keep that res cap going. And then anything else on top of that is an added bonus, like increased max energy shield, 2 max energy shield, anything like that will really help the build, as well as trying to look for spirits, so this way we can get to all of our spirit requirements to run everything. For our rings, we're running an amethyst ring here for chaos res. If you can get chaos res like rolled on the ring, it's better, or you can get it, you know, with an amethyst. Either way, you can grab it. We need to get as much chaos res as possible. We're running cold damage on this one because you need to have at least 2 to 3 pieces with cold damage to reliably proc our Herald of Ice and Thunder Tech and all that, as well as, you know, our int, because we do need a good amount of int to actually run everything. And then pretty much from that, just keeping res cap, and that's pretty much it. For our other ring, we're running an unset. This gives us an additional skill slot, which allows us to throw in connectivity. So that is massive. Having an unset ring for the build, it gives it a lot more DPS with running int and keeping res cap. Obviously, if you can roll something like lightning damage like you see here, it will give the build a lot more DPS overall. And then for our belt, you can pretty much look for all belts. We're just trying to get a belt with good reses and chaos res, so that's why we have the utility, but anything like that would work. For our armor, we're running an expert feather tiara. It's a really good ES base, just trying to get as much ES as possible and good res rolls there. Our boots, again, expert feathered sandals, really good ES base, just trying to get reses, high ES, and anything else added on there is good, like int. Obviously 35% move speed is what you want to be looking for. So this way you can be zooming through maps as fast as possible. For our body armor, running the expert waxed jacket, just a really good ES and energy shield base. Running that, trying to get high evasion and ES on it with spirit, and then just keeping res cap is what we're looking for. And then obviously our Hands of Wisdom and Action Gloves are absolutely massive. It gives a lot more DPS for the build, considering we still need to hit about 164 int for our actual connectivity and stuff like that. So we do need to get that. Plus, if we already have it and we're stacking int, we can throw these gloves on to get a lot more lightning damage to attacks, as well as that attack speed per dex. So it's overall just a big DPS boost for the build, and I recommend getting it as soon as you can. Obviously, if you can't, just run right now like rare gloves with attack speed. Some, you know, like crit damage, added damage or something like that to it will suffice until you can get the Hands of Wisdom and Action Gloves. So for our weapon swapping, we're running a Widow Hail Crude Bow, specifically trying to find a 270% increase one, because we do that with a 270 and we have +2 level of all projectiles on our quiver. And we take the quiver node on the tree that gives increased bonuses on our quiver. We'll actually get another level out of our quiver, which is huge for our actual bone storm to do more DPS. So that covers it for the gear. Now we're getting into the gems. We'll do the bossing and then we'll go into the clear real quick. So for Minute Exile, we're running super critical and inevitable critical still. This just gives a lot more crit chance and crit damage. Elemental focus is more elemental damage, and then primal ardent is more weapon elemental damage. This adds a lot more DPS to the build. And now we are running hourglass. So this is actually huge. This gives 40% more damage, which is massive. It does add a 10-second cooldown, but that doesn't matter when you're one-shotting enemies and bosses. Somebody in the last video mentions, why aren't you running hourglass? And I was testing it today, and it's an absolutely amazing support gem, and it does actually give so much more DPS for a Minute Exile though. For lightning arrow, we're running martial tempo still. We're running overcharge now because we're doing a 97% shock percentage on the enemy, so that's why we have overcharge. It allows us to get above that 71 that we were doing previously. Then we're running lasting shock to give more shock duration to counter the less shock overcharge gives. Then we're running lightning exposure to inflict it with lightning arrow, plus strip away to have an increased effect of our lightning exposure. We're running Bone Summer Physical Mastery to get another level, and the reason why levels are so important, if you see here, we're doing 869 to 1303 physical damage debuffed on the enemy from next attack. This can stack to 20 projectiles, so basically that means if we hit 20 projectiles on an enemy, the next 20 attacks will take that physical damage on top of all of our other stuff, and it'll all get calculated into our crit and all that, which adds massive DPS to Minute Exile. So we run Physical Mastery to give many levels as possible to increase that. Arcane Tempo for more cast speed with it, since it is a spell. Life Tap, it just helps with the mana issues on it because it takes so much mana per second, so we'd rather just do it with life instead. And then Ricochet, so this way we have a chance of those missing projectiles to come back and hit the enemy. Then Lightning Rod with Concentrated Effect. This just gives them more damage and a smaller AoE for overlapping on Minute Exile when we blow them up. Scatter Shot to have more projectiles come down so we have less attacks to get to the max rods on the ground. The Lightning Pen gives them more damage, and then Close Combat for more damage. Then we're going into our reservation skills, so running Grim Feast to basically overflow and get 2x ES that the build's running. It's really good for survivability. Then we're running Clarity on it for more mana regen and Precision for more accuracy, but obviously if you can drop these two if you don't need it, which will clear up even more Spirit on the build. Then we have Herald of Ice with Magnified Effect. This gives it more AoE to overlap. Then we have Innervate. This gives it more damage as lightning damage when it kills a shocked enemy. And the reason why we're running this and like lightning exposure or infusion, on the Herald of Ice is because Herald of Ice can shock, but it can't freeze. And then the Herald of Thunder can freeze, but it can't shock. So they can do each other's respective basically like ailments. So that allows, us to basically go in and kind of chain loop and stuff with Herald of Ice and Thunder now, and allows the chain clear to be a lot better. So that's why we run those two, plus Cold Pen gives it more penetration on the actual explosion of Herald of Ice. Then for Herald of Thunder is Cold Infusion. Like I said, it allows it to get more cool damage to freeze. Glaciation has more percent freeze buildup. Ice Bite gives it more damage on killing a freezed enemy, which it pretty much always does. And then Lightning Mastery to get another level out of it. Now the most significant change to the build is probably here. We're now running Cast on Shock instead of Cast on Crit. The main reason for this is Cast on Crit basically was sending out too many Eye of Winners and bossing, which siphoned our mana basically down to nothing within a second. So running Cast on Shock means that our Eye of Winner will be procced less, because we only need to hit 10 stacks now against pinnacle bosses and stuff to get, the max stacks of critical weakness. So we can basically run this to reduce the amount of proc on the actual skill, which makes all of our mana basically able to be a lot higher, and we don't really have any mana issues anymore with the build on bossing, which is absolutely amazing to hear. Next, we're running Inspiration to have less cost on the skill, Energy Retention to have a chance to refund half the energy when it does trigger. It just kind of helps for mobbing and stuff like that. And I was testing this with bossing and having all this in here. The skill doesn't proc nearly as much as Cast on Crit did, so we can still run all the support gems in it and be fine. Impetus to have increased energy gain on the actual skill to cast. We're still running Voltaic Marks, so we have increased effect of shock on the enemy, which allows us to achieve that 97%. Then we have Persistence to have more duration on that mark. And then we're running Connectivity since we have that Unset Ring in now. We have another skill slot. This allows us to get and lower the enemy's lightning resist specifically by 35%. And then we're running Heightened Curse to have increased effect of this curse. And then Heightened Ground, it basically turns it into an AoE, so any enemies inside this AoE will instantly get cursed. If they move out of it, they won't, but as long as they're inside of it, they will. And then Ritualistic Curse, which gives it more area of effect. It does increase the basically delay of the skill popping, but obviously it isn't that bad since we'd have to do a little bit of setup. So by the time when we get our setup good, it's already on, and we go in and straight do the mad damage with Minute Exile. Now for clear, it's pretty simple. We're just going to have Heft on our Lightning Arrow. We're going to throw Primal Ardent back on our Lightning Arrow with Ambush to have more crit chance. This just helps us when we're mobbing to basically have a lot more crit chance to actually kill enemies and one-shot them once they're on full life, so that first hit. Then we're running long shot to have more damage the more like further the projectile travels. Since we're off screen clearing and stuff like that, it really does help the skill get a lot more DPS, and then still keeping martial tempo. And then that's pretty much it. Everything else stays the same. We just throw some stuff off of Magnetic Salvo to throw in the lightning arrow, and then that's it. Now we can get into the tree. Some big stuff did get changed around here. For the Ascendancy though, we're still taking point blank to get the increased damage for Magnetic Salvo the closer we are. We're doing endless munitions to have additional projectile, helps with clearing and calling, you know, down our lightning rods to get them set up and stuff like that. Gathering winds to basically get tailwind, which gives us like more move speed, attack speed, and skill speed, all that good stuff. Wind ward to basically have less damage taken per tailwind. So at max tailwind stacks, we're taking 30% less damage on that first hit that consumes our tailwind, which is really nice. And then we're shifting a lot of the passives around here. So instead of going up and taking these top travel nodes into like Code Instincts and stuff like that, we can actually drop them and save a good amount of points. So we're going to take this top tree, we're going to grab this int, and then we're going to take some dex, but mostly in here to get to that next int threshold to get more damage off our Howa gloves. We're still taking Hone Instincts and putting 2 more points to take Val Wounds, so we're not losing any damage, but we're just saving points to put in other areas of the tree. We're still coming down and taking the quiver like nodes to basically get increased bonuses from our quiver. Still going down and taking Catalyst, but now we're taking this Jewel Socket because Jewel Sockets actually add a good amount of DPS if you can get the right rolled ones. So that's why we're taking a lot more Jewel Sockets now in the tree. Still taking Stand and Deliver for more damage with Magnetic Salvo. Going into Maiming Strike for that increased attack damage, plus chance to maim isn't bad. Then we're taking Frazzled for that increased magnitude of shocks you inflict, so we can actually reach that 97% shock effectiveness. Still taking Acceleration just because the move speed and skill speed it gives is too good not to take. We're going in and we're still taking Sniper and these back 2 critical damage nodes because Sniper just allows us basically to get increased crit chance as our projectiles travel further. Since we're off screen clearing, stuff like that, running long shot and lightning arrow for clearing, there's no reason not to take Sniper. It just gives a lot more DPS to the build. And then we are taking Feathered Fletching, so this way our projectile speed will apply to damage to bows. We're coming up here and still taking everything in this crit cluster because it's too good not to take. So like Heartbreaking is increased crit damage, Heart Stopping is increased crit chance and stuff, and int plus those 2, you know, help out with more damage since we have Howa gloves. And then Struck Through is another 1% chance to our base, which is massive. Taking Coming Calamities, so this way we can get increased cold and lightning damage since we do have Herald of Ice and Thunder up. And then we're going to just put 1 point on this node. There's no reason not to. We get a lot more damage for it. So before we actually would take these 3 evasion nodes to get to Enhanced Reflexes and Beastal Skin, but now we're dropping these and actually putting them into these travel nodes to get to this Jewel Socket. We save a point, plus we get a free Jewel Socket out of it, so there's no reason not to do that. Then we're taking up and we're still taking Falcon Technique to get that increased attack speed per dex. And then we'll come over and still take Enhanced Reflexes and Beastal Skin, as it does give a lot of increased evasion, plus 8% increased dex off of Enhanced Reflexes is nice. And then since we have all these extra freed up points, we can now take Kite Runner. This is a lot more projectile speed and damage and all this good stuff, so it gives a lot more DPS to the build. We're still taking Harmonic Generator just because that increased crit chance against shocked enemies really does help get us to a really good crit chance with Magnetic Salvo when bossing to actually go ahead and reliably crit. And then obviously we'll take General Electric because we have to take this to actually get to Harmonic Generator. And then we're going to travel up and we're still taking this huge crit cluster. And we're going to be taking this Jewel node now, since we can kind of just path up on the right side and then use our weapon swap skills basically to go to the left. We can take this Jewel Socket to get free damage, but this whole crit cluster is going to give us like increased critical hit chance and dex, 10 int and increased crit damage. And then these 3 over here will give us a total of 70% increased damage if we've done a crit recently, which is absolutely massive. It's definitely a lot more DPS for the build. We're still taking Spectral Ward and all the nodes previous to it. It gives a lot more ES and max energy shield, which helps us survive a lot in high tiers. And then we'll put 1 point into this Jewel Socket to throw another Jewel in to get even more DPS for the build. And then we have 3 remaining points that we're going to throw into Dynamism. This gives us 40% increased damage if we triggered a skill recently, which basically means our Eye of Winter, which we always are pretty much triggering it. So we're always having 40% increased damage, which is massive. For the jewels, you're just going to be looking for Emerald Jewels, looking for like crit damage bonus for attack, increased attack damage. You can get bonuses gained from equipped quiver is good. If you could get attack speed and or increased crit chance for attacks, projectile damage, all that stuff is good on our Emerald Jewels to try to roll. And then the 2 unique ones that you kind of see with these areas, this one up here is just a rare jewel, but it's a time lost emerald, and it basically just means it affects passive skills in a radius of that blue bubble. So we have this one where we get increased crit damage, attack speed, and bonuses gained from equipped quiver on our notable passives, which are the big ones. So we're getting 20% crit damage, 2% increased attack speed, and 12% increased bonuses gained from our quiver, just because we have this in. Which, if you can buy a jewel for it, right, just a normal emerald jewel like this, but to get that percentages all on the same jewel is going to be like a 10 div jewel. So we can buy this one for 2-3 divs, save a lot of money, plus get the same bonuses out of it. Then for our bottom one with this blue circle, we're running Against the Darkness. This is a unique time loss jewel. It just adds a lot more DPS to the build. It gives 4% of damage as extra lightning damage, which is massive, and overall it just gives a lot more added damage to the build. If you can get one with increased max life, that's like best in slot, but that can be very expensive. All right, that covers it for the build. That's everything. We went over all of it. Like I said, the build's feeling a lot better. We're hitting 33 million damage crits. We're clearing absolutely amazing in T16 breaches, juice breaches. It just feels overall a lot better, especially since we can solve the mana issues now. I think the build is in a really good place. I'm having a blast with it, and I think you guys will too. If you did enjoy the video, or you like what I'm doing on the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like on the video. It helps me out immensely, and that currently is the best way to support me. Plus, it really does help with the YouTube algorithm. I should also be streaming on YouTube and Twitch right now. The link for that will be in the description, as well as the comment section of the video. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day and night depending on you're watching the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.